everybody, it's Tonia, your vegan friend Tonia, and as you can see, with me is an extremely special guest coming literally from the other side of the world, CLARE MANN, vegan psychologist, and she has all kinds of letters under her name. I don't even know what all of those things mean, but I am so incredibly honored that Claire is taking time tonight to talk with us, and it's actually morning for her, but she's going to talk to us about a couple of different things, right, Claire? We've got a couple of different things that we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm just honored to have her here. Now, CLARE MANN has written this book, Dystopia, the anguish, which is such a great word that you used, of being vegan in a non-vegan world. And I'll tell you, you know what, Claire, I couldn't have clicked on this faster to buy when I heard your description a while ago when you came out with this book. I couldn't have clicked on it faster because I do experience dystopia. I am your audience. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, I really appreciate it. And thank you for all you're doing. And it's interesting, the term dystopia. We kind of needed a word, didn't we? I always say to people, it's not my word. I created the word, but I didn't create the concept and the experience in it. I'm a telling witness because I suffer from dystopia as well. But I do believe there's a way to transmute that into doing the best we can do for animals and in turn people on the planet.
Yeah, it's a great word. It's so, like you can feel that word, you know, and I have definitely, oh, it's just something. I mean, I do have a therapist who is not a vegan therapist, but I had to make a decision in my therapy how far I can go. And like, is it okay to talk to her because I was afraid of offending her or making her feel bad too. So I mean, just even for somebody to have that relationship with their therapist, we live dystopia every single day. I mean, I can't tell you the mental gymnastics that I go through all the time to communicate with people and try to like say the right thing, but also try to be a vegan activist, but also not offend someone, but also make sure that my point is, you know, getting across. And I mean, it's just mental gymnastics. So this is such great work that you do. Thank you so much. You know,
can I pick you up on a little thing there? Is if we can learn that we say, oh, I don't want to offend people, we cannot offend anyone without their permission. Yeah. No, we can obviously cause harm if we say things to someone. So say, for instance, you know, your brother or partner or someone says to me, Claire, I just think that dress looks ghastly on you and you should never wear it and it's awful. I'm going to go, okay, that's your opinion, up to you. You don't offend me. You know, if he says or she says that to you, you get upset by that potentially. If you put significance on it, and therefore that pain is therefore received, you have to put significance on it. Now, I believe that the way to go in life is a good rule I've been taught by is not to cause unnecessary pain. Now, we are going to cause pain sometimes by what we believe or the mirror we hold up to people. So in talking to your therapist, you know, if you went along with a religious belief and you were afraid to offend them, they say, well, gosh, I'm not a Muslim, don't make me feel guilty about it, that, you know, I'm gonna, you know, not live the good life, do the proper thing. We wouldn't worry about that. We'd be sharing our belief, if that's what we believe, to actually say, and you can benefit from this. But with veganism, it's a bit different, isn't it, Tonia? Because at some level, the reaction is so out of proportion to the threat, because they could say, well, okay, Tonia, you're a vegan, I'm not, up to you. So what do you want to why do you feel you want to tell me all this? But they don't, they react. And that's because at some level, I think people know they're doing the wrong thing, that there is someone that is causing unnecessary harm. And of course, that's the animals.
Oh, wow. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, and I should say too, my therapist is fantastic and ordered your book. I couldn't believe it. I was telling her about you and she said, oh yeah, I ordered her book, and she showed me. And I'm wow, that's really cool. So she's definitely open and wants to be helpful to me, which is amazing, you know, amazing, because I do have vegan friends, which is of course something that I'm sure that you have advocated for, is like finding your tribe, you know, and I have certainly done that. And you know, we spend probably 30% of our friendship telling each other how happy we are to have each other as vegan friends that we can communicate with.
Yes.
That's a big part of our relationship, is just telling each other how thankful we are to have other people that feel the same, you know.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. It's been crazy. Yeah, so how what would you like to talk about next, do you think? Like I know that you had wanted to talk about some things like going on in the vegan community right now.
Mm.
Have you seen like any differences since the pandemic started, and like how vegans are acting in general? Because, I know,
Yeah.
for instance, I always have dystopia. I carry that with me all the time. But of course, when we're living through this pandemic, that we of course know the cause of, and we know all these other things that are happening in the world, and we see people getting sick and upset, and we know what a lot of the cause of that is. It's even harder.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
have you experienced that recently?
Well, it is very hard, isn't it? I was reading a great book I advocate, which is by Dr. Michael Greger, which is How Not to Die. And you probably know that book, do you? He does, and he's got the Daily Dozen and whatever. And I didn't actually realize these zoonotic diseases, everyone we've had from tuberculosis to whatever is linked back to goats and buffaloes, and the common cold links back to the horse. Now, until we interacted with horses and broke them in, which is the most obscene term to break their spirit, probably horses got colds and they got over them because the body did what it was meant to do, and suddenly humans have them. So I think you're right, Tonia, is we are so frustrated because people don't get really sick from vegetables, unless there's a load of bacteria or they're living in an area where there's open sewage and the vegetables aren't getting washed properly. And we find now that actually it's only when you put cow manure on and preserving things onto our vegetables to grow them that we're having these problems. So for the vegan, it's like a double whammy, isn't it? It's like you almost want to say, well, I told you so. So you've got that sort of going on, and then you get this ridiculous kickback from people that says, oh, there is not the time to talk about this. Well, actually it definitely is, because this carniste sort of lifestyle we have of speciesism and abuse of animals is causing our ill health, our environmental destruction, our ocean dead zones, and the most heinous cruelty to animals. So we've got to find a way to keep ourselves well, collaborate with others, and not attack each other. We're not the enemy, so to speak. But one thing I'd like to say, Tonia, as well, is the narrative, if you think about it, 99% of the population are being told by health departments around the world to eat a certain diet that is killing them. It's called an animal-based diet. And now we are believing 100% of what they're telling us about the figures around pandemics, wearing masks, social distancing, all of this sort of stuff. So it kind of surprises me how quickly us as vegans, in our fear often, are going along with the narrative without questioning it. Yeah. Now, I'm just due to do a series of webinars actually with some, very knowledgeable individuals, vegan people that people know, who actually are cutting underneath is, why are people getting sick? And his view is people are definitely getting sick. There is a very virulent virus, as there are a lot of coronaviruses. However, it isn't quite as black and white as this in terms of how this all works out. So I'm looking forward to sharing that series with people, but I want people to be careful the language we use. We want to have answers. We want to say, yes, it was completely caused by wet markets, okay? And then, to have that language, and then we could have a solution. However, some of the narratives that's coming out doesn't kind of add up. The figures don't add up. The lockdowns don't add up. There doesn't seem to be a lot of scientific credibility behind mask wearing or social distancing. That causes us as vegans and the rest of the world enormous anxiety, because we go, well, not only on top of this, I'm trying to tell people to stop eating animals. Now you want me to question what is really going on? And it's almost like our anxiety knows no end, does it, as vegans? But the question is, as I say in the definition of dystopia, is it's a trance. When we tell people, and we're telling each other and ourselves, this trance-like collusion with a dark and dystopian reality we don't even know we're aware of. And I think there are some forces in the world that are there that will take advantage of these sort of situations we find ourselves in, like a very virulent virus that's happening at the moment, and they will take advantage of that. Do I have the definitive on that? No, I don't. But what I do know is that if trillions of animals that are killed every year were happening in plain sight, before we became vegan, we didn't know. We have to ask, what else don't I know? And if we can come together and you know, have a level of critical thinking, is to collaborate and support each other, be mindful of our health, but also keep asking the questions. Because if we lose our freedom of speech, we're not going to be a voice for animals. So there's a lot going on at the moment, isn't there, Tonia?
Well, yes, thank you. Definitely lots going on. That is an understatement, especially when you take in America, because I don't. It's hard to gauge because I'm in America, so it's hard to gauge what is happening in other parts of the world, really, and like what kind of news other parts of the world are getting. You know, like, but it is a mess. It is a mess here. It is a complete mess of like information, infighting, not even vegan, just human being to human being. Being a political year this year, of course, it is a complete mess. It is
absolutely.
Oh my goodness, it's exhausting. And of course, as being like a vegan activist and wanting to like spread that kind of information about veganism and stuff, it is kind of difficult because everything is so muddled and cloudy. And there's just so much out there, so much news is out there. So it really is layered, so many layers of crap out there right now. It's just really hard to keep your head about you, and of course, like, you know, you do want to stay tied in with social media as a vegan activist, and I want to know what's going on somewhat, but that has definitely been something I think since the pandemic started, and if not before, where you want to like sort of limit the social media a little bit and sort of limit what comes into your head. So you really have to be like a wall going up as quickly as you can, just to sort of like bat it away if it's too much. I guess that's really all I've kind of been doing, is trying to be an active part of it and try to make a good difference, but there is just so much. So again, I'm really not sure what people other parts of the country are getting. If it's maybe it's the same, I don't know. I would doubt it, because you know, America, we do things big here, you know. We do things really big and loud here.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I do actually follow American politics, because whatever happens in America affects the rest of the world. And one thing I'm deeply alarmed at is the amount of censorship that is going on at the moment. You know, the number of doctors, let's look at our current situation, is the number, hundreds of doctors that are coming out and going, just a minute, we keep talking about the science, but we need to look at this science. A lot of the figures that are coming out are based on modeling. That's not science, that's predictions. And once we've got corporations involved, we know from the point of view of what happens in the meat and livestock industries, the extent to which people will go to make a buck, to have power, to tell people to eat food that is killing them. We know that all sort of goes on. And so there's an enormous amount of censorship of any doctor that seems to come out and challenge the narrative. Now, that is, even in politics, if you actually just look at your polarized situation at the moment, you know, anyone who mentions Donald Trump and gives any support whatsoever is suddenly seen as, oh, you're a traitor somehow. But he is so censored. So by the time it reaches other people, they say, I can't believe he said that. When you actually go back to original press conference, he actually didn't say that. Now, it's not whether we agree with what he says or he doesn't, but when we have censorship, who is going to be the arbiter of truth that says, look, you're a grown adult, I'm a grown adult, you need to give me the information and let me decide. But if the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters are censoring what we can see, that is really moving towards a totalitarian regime, because we are told what to do. And as vegans, we know how 99% of the population are being manipulated to eat food that is killing them, you know? And actually, in the first webinar I'm due to do recently, I was finding out about the comorbidities. I know we're talking a lot about this, Tonia, but it's relevant to our freedom of speech. And, you know, someone who really knows about some of the, you know, effects on the respiratory system of the medications, those people with those heart conditions and diabetes and things, how that interferes with someone who's then being attacked, so to speak, by, or gets access to a virulent sort of virus or something. They may not, and it may actually be the comorbidities that are more predictive of whether they're going to be ill or not. So doesn't it make sense to actually revisit, you know, people that are compromised anyway, rather than locking everybody down? Because that leads to fear. And that means then, even as vegans, people attack each other. They go, hey, you're suddenly the threat. We are not the threat. One thing, we've got to be mindful of each other and supportive. It is so important. And I think is when we look at the world stage, as you say, what's going on in America, what's happening all around the world, I think it's a big system, really. We're all affected by whatever decisions get made. I think very much is to, put our own oxygen mask on first. Be in the most tip-top health we can be. Have the routines and practices that enable us not to be living to minimize the effect of stress. Stress is the worst thing we can do for our immune system. And I'll just share a little story with you is when people have implanted organs, which we'll go into another thing about animal abuse if we want to look at that awful area, but say someone has a heart implant or kidney transplant and whatever, after the surgery, it's common practice to inject people with cortisol, a stress hormone. And the reason is because the natural immune system of the body, when it is faced with a foreign object like somebody else's heart, it will automatically fight it. As we know, it rejects the organ. However, when there's the presence of stress, therefore the release of cortisol and adrenaline, the immune system directs the energy to whatever it thinks might be a stressor. Let's stop being stressed. It actually moves away from fighting the new organ and rejecting it to actually putting its energies elsewhere. So that tells us is that when we're under stress, our immune system is not able to fight illness, for instance. And so isn't that extraordinary? It's quite extraordinary. They do that as a matter of course. In many places. So if we're fighting and screaming and attacking other people and we're in fear, we've lost our jobs, we're wondering whether we're going to get furloughed or we're going to lose our home or where we're living, or we're losing our vegan community, that stress is actually minimizing our physical health, which compromises us, which makes us even more fearful. So we've got to have some really good practices of good whole food plant-based diet. We need downtime, we need our exercise, we need fresh air, we need vitamin D, we need to support each other and say, hey, look, we're not the enemy here. We're the vegans. We've woken up to this stuff. Let's navigate this together. And none of us know really what's going on. But if I give you a different view, let's talk about the view. Let's not talk about attacking each other, that we should all agree, because we need to be together more than ever, don't we, Tonia?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for offering up some suggestions on, like that kind of self-care, because that was what I was going to ask is like, well, then, what do we do? I know I just went through this actually just yesterday. I love nothing more than to scratch off my to-do list. That is like what I love. I thrive on that. Like, here's my to-do list from today. I did really well.
Yes.
I love that. So I think, I'm a doer and I don't like to stop. So I always feel like a bit of a failure when I have to have a day when I need to just rest. So that's something that I've been doing. Like just yesterday, I just physically and mentally couldn't do anything. I just didn't want to do anything, and I just took that day to rest. So I think that's it's really important. I think during this time to do like what you said, all of those things, vitamins, and making sure our gut health is going to be as strong as it can be to fight off everything, like including the stress and just resting and that kind of thing. That's one thing that I've been trying to do, and try to put away the to-do list for a day. And that's something that I always struggle with. But I think there's not anything really wrong with right now realizing that this is an advanced situation. It's not a usual state that we're in, so like that's just something that I've been trying to deal with personally is like, okay, so what do we do? Like, I guess we just sort of accept ourselves and don't put all of the stress. Maybe we can only do 75% of what we could normally accomplish or something like that. And I think that's okay, right? If we sleep more, if we, all of these coping mechanisms, as long as we're doing them in a healthy way, are probably helpful. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think we've learned to be human doings, haven't we? And we're human beings. And I think as animal advocates as well, we feel guilty if we're not doing anything. The animals, to them, having a day off, their life is just 24/7 hell. So we feel there's a sense of guilt being that we feel we're doing something wrong. I say to people, sometimes the best thing you can do for the animals is take the day off. The animals need us to be there next week, next month, next year, the next decade. And if we keel over, and I see so many vegans come out of this, or they get into the fray on social media and start sort of, trying to convince other people of things. If we get into that, all we'll do is, I can't do this anymore, we walk away, and then we'll understand what guilt feels like. And the animals don't need us to do that. So, but it's interesting, when I talk about vitamins, is getting out you've got to go out and have fresh air. This is one of the biggest travesties, if I may say, if we actually look at the medical side of this, is people not getting out and having fresh air. And even on a non-sunny day, 15 minutes walk in an overcloudy day is enough for our bodies to produce vitamin D, which acts like more, I'm talking to some doctors at the moment, it's almost like not a vitamin, it's almost like a hormone, the way it acts, but it is essential for our well-being and health. So, and having that fresh air, getting out, we know we feel differently when we go out in nature, if we can, even if it's a local park or a garden, just get into that. But you said something about sleep. Now, I've been doing a lot of research on sleep, and we are so sleep deprived as human beings. It's really not true. It's because we are, as you say, you've got your to-do list, and we've taught ourselves, I get up early in the morning and I do this, but we've got to honor our sleep. And it's very, very important, particularly when we're learning things or we're remembering things, is sleep consolidates our memory. And I'll give you a quick experiment, if I can just show you, as experiments have been done with young babies, where in one group, the mothers are holding their 12-month-old babies or pretty young babies, and the the researcher comes along, and I haven't got a puppet here, but they hold up a puppet and they play a little soft toy, and the little baby's only 12 months old, and they play a game, and they start to just move their hand to sort of make big circles, and the baby laughs. The first group of babies, they get put to sleep afterwards. They go down for an hour to sleep. The other babies in the other group, they are kept up and they just sleep later. When the researcher comes back in and they hold the toy up and they give the toy to the child, the children who had a sleep pick up the toy and they start to mirror the circle they learned. Mm-hmm. In the group that didn't have the sleep, they just throw the toy aside. Okay, this led to a lot of research about consolidation of memory. So really, for people studying at the moment, staying up till 2 a.m. and cramming is not a good way to learn. We need to study, then we need to sleep. Mm-hmm. But Tonia, as vegans, there is not one organ in the body that doesn't benefit or suffer through either suitable sleep or lack of sleep. It is, if we have an hour less sleep than we actually require, and our bodies do require about 7.5 to 8 each, none of us are special there. There's very few sleep disorders, apparently. There's sleep problems, but the actual disorders are very rare. We live in a false electronic world that is all this stimulation and things. Is when we have that lack of sleep, when we get in the car to drive to work or drive somewhere, it's almost as if we've had a glass of wine. That is the difference in our ability to make decisions quickly, to react. And also, and this is really important for us as vegans, talking to non-vegans as well and each other, if we are sleep deprived, and I'm talking consistently of an hour less a day, we are not able as well to read the non-verbal, visual, sort of facial expressions of people. And therefore, we're getting into arguments. Because we're not able to read this. So all of this is not setting the scene for us to try and influence others' behavior to become vegan or to not get on social media and be rude to each other. These are all important techniques.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Yeah.
But your to-do list, Tonia, as you were saying, is just asking yourself, half of this is addiction. We've learned this because we go, well, I want to be a doer. There's things I want to achieve, and there's a gap between where I am and where I want to be. And I'm a great one for routines and consistently working towards success. Now, let me just ask you a definition here. Tonia, what is your definition of success? And I'm going to give you a great one that isn't mine, but I've adopted it. What do you see? If someone said to you, what's success to you, Tonia?
I think finding something that makes an individual happy, so and content and feel good about themselves. For me, I like to create, so I'm a creative person. So whenever I can make something, I'm a hairstylist, but I'm also an indie filmmaker. So whenever I can be working on a project and chipping away at making that come true, that's my definition of success.
Yeah.
to make you
Do
feel
you know, you're way up there with what I'm going to say as well. I'm just going to tweak it a little bit, and I hope that
good.
really helps. And our listeners is I think, and I don't want to judge the non-vegan community because there's huge variations, but a lot of before we come into actually realizing that there's other people that need our help, non-human animals, and it would solve so many problems in the world. I think a lot of the definitions of success are getting a good job, earning money, having a roof over our head, owning our own home, having time to spend and do, but they're very sort of self-centered often. And we get all that in order, and then we can be of benefit to the world. And I think when you do something like you've done, you're a creative person, you're bringing a gift to the world. The best definition I ever heard, which just expands that a little bit, and I hope it helps people, is by the late Earl Nightingale. He was an American who was actually on the battleship, one of the big battleships that went down, and he was one of the survivors. And he decided that he would devote his life to helping people. This must be back in the 40s or earlier. Late Earl Nightingale. And he said, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Now, what I like about that is the progressive realization. So, you know, you want to be, you're creative, you're doing this. And so the question is, what can I do at any one time that is moving me in the direction? You're never actually going to reach it, because to the end of your life, you are still creating.
Yes. That's can you say that again? The progressive
realization of a worthy ideal. Yeah. So you've got a worthy ideal. You want to be creative. You want to make a difference. That is your worthy ideal. And the more you can make that clear, a lot of us say, I want to set up an animal sanctuary. That's my success. And that's actually, when they achieve that, they then to look for another one. But really what they're trying to do is create a context where they're going to have animals living as they should and be an educational center for other people and save all these animals and influence other people. It's an ongoing pursuit, isn't it? Because they might, when they get there, go, oh, well, I'm going to expand and have a franchise of sanctuaries. Yeah. And so I think as vegans, our lofty, big, hairy, audacious ideal in many ways is we do want animal liberation. We want a vegan world. What does that look like in its widest form? And then we say, well, will it ever get there? So I'll settle for this. If we hold on to that worthy ideal, knowing that we're all in this big vegan relay race, that where some of us run and then we pass the baton to someone else, we just all have to play our part. But coming down to our ability to do that is we're putting those routines and practices, the exercise, the fresh air, the good nutrition. It's better to do things consistently over a long period of time than actually say, oh, I'm going to run 3 times a week. And then I don't run 3 times a week, I don't run once a week, but we find something that works for us. I've learned to get out of breath by doing some fast walking up a hill with the dogs, the non-human animals I live with. But for instance, let me give you an example, and a lot of people know this because I've talked about it on podcasts, is I've been doing yoga for 40 years, okay? Wow. Now, do I do an hour and a half 3 times a week? Do an hour every week 3 times? I don't, because I realized a long time ago that the effort to get to a class, go to a class, then go into a nice meditative thing, and then have to wake up, get back on the bus or in the car, it wasn't working for me. So often if I didn't feel like it, I wouldn't go. And that's what most of us do. We don't feel like going to the gym or going for that run or so we only do it when we're really on top of our game. However, I decided 40 years ago that, and I sometimes go to classes to make sure I'm doing some good moves, is I could do 10 to 15 minutes, probably 3 or 4 times, 4 or 5 times a week. And I've kept that up. On average, I do probably 5 days a week, but I do 10 minutes, but I've done it over 40 years.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm actually laughing because that is something that I'm not sure if you happen to be familiar with the minimalists.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Great. Okay, so it's Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Fields Milburn. And I learned that from them years ago too, that they said, yes. He's like, you know what? I know, we all know we're supposed to exercise. Okay, we know we're supposed to, sure, whatever. Joshua, I believe it was, said that he would start exercising and he would get bored and sick of it 18 minutes in. And he would be just like, he just sort of paid attention and he was like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And he would, and so then he said, all right, then you know what? I'm going to exercise for 18 minutes. Yes, and I love that too. It's like, forget about like, so I actually do, I'm chubby, but like I do work out. I have an exercise equipment right here. right in my apartment. It's an eyesore, but I don't care because it's important. I don't want to go to the gym either. I don't want to like warm up for 15 minutes and then get on the machines and then take a shower after. And I don't want to do that. I just want to. I do like 10 minutes of stretching on my bed, and then I do about 10 minutes on my machine. And I feel like, I mean, I know that it's something, and it's what I do. And I know that if I don't do it, I can feel it that I didn't do it. So that's why I was laughing. I was smiling so hard because I love that philosophy that is makes so much more sense. And I mean, should I be doing it more? Of course I should, but like, I'm just more apt to do it so much more often and so much more consistent. Like, I'm with you on it.
I mean, I don't go to a gym. I don't want to pay someone to stand on a treadmill. It just feels like it's hard work. However, what I have found is I'm a great walker. So, but it seems to be from all the research is that just a moderate walking of 20 minutes a day, and it doesn't have to be you're going for this specific walk, it's movement, dramatically reduces incidence and things like recovery from surgeries and all sorts of things. Is you're better to do that consistently, that stretching, that movement. 40 years of yoga, doing it 10 minutes on average 4 times a week. But actually also we're teaching, if you look at habit is memory of the body. And so when you go to bed tonight, Tonia, you don't have to remind yourself to clean your teeth, do you? You just do it. Yeah. Why? Because probably there was someone like your mom or dad that said, or nanny, who said, clean your teeth and go to bed. Clean your teeth and go to bed. It then becomes a habit, a memory of the body, and it feels weird if you don't do it. So if I go a couple of days without doing yoga, there's a tightness in my shoulders. I know satisfaction reinforces the interest. So getting on the mat, doing that, I've had over those 40 years different renditions of dogs living with me, and they just sort of try and get on the mat too, and it's quite it's quite fun. I'm trying to work around them, but it's memory of the body. It feels weird. So consistently doing something that teaches you, then you don't have to remind yourself. You actually do it because you feel better and you're prepared for the day. I don't have any back problems and aches and pains in my body because I've stretched like that. And I'm sure there's lots of other factors, but not eating animals was a huge one, but I have that flexibility. So you doing that stretching, and who said should? I mean, whenever we hear the word should, ought, or must, there's some outside directive that says what's right for us. We need to find out some sound information, incorporate it in our lives, and do what is good for us. But it doesn't mean going to the gym for hours unless you really love it. Go out and do a running, go and play netball, go and play basketball. Do something you love rather than it being a grind, because the body, I'm sure, will not benefit from it in the same way than if you're actually enjoying the movement in your body.
Now, do you have any kind of like advice or exercises that people can do, like mental exercises or anything like that to help us vegans, get through these hard times, like, just in general? Because I know that's
absolutely. Well, there's a few things on my website. There's lots of free things that I encourage people to do. I always think our salvation comes as vegans when we develop to focus on 2 things. First one is self-awareness, is becoming very aware of, what are the buttons that get pressed in me? What is my unfinished business? What is, we come to veganism, but we come to life with all the normal problems and fears and panics about our body image, about, relationships, about our family spats and arguments, and then we throw dystopia on the top, so it gets really intense, doesn't it? And so we've got to become really self-aware. I always say to people, whenever you've got a problem, remember you're always there. And so when, in anything we're doing in life, is say, what is my part in this? How can I be a better person? How can I put those foundational blocks into my life through exercise, good nutrition, downtime, self-management, goals, writing things down, sticking to my, setting some good things. And the second one is explicit communication. I think if we can come away every day knowing that we pushed veganism and animal liberation in the right direction, we may not have done as much as we wanted, but we feel we've done something every day. We had a conversation, we just gave a chink of consciousness, or we were on the world stage. All of us are different. We did a fantastic podcast like this that it may affect one person in the world, but that person goes on to affect 1 million. We never know where these snippets of information go. So there's 2 elements there. So There's a number of resources on my website. One of them is Vegan Voices. It's a free 30-day interactive, well, not interactive in terms of skills is a little snippet of exquisite communication skills of how to talk about veganism. All right, is all the typical things we have. Vegan Voice. So just go on to veganpsychologist.com. There's resources there. You'll see it. There's also a meditation. I'm a great advocate of meditation, but most of us think, oh, I'm not any good at it, because we've just got busy minds. So guided visualizations are very powerful, but I have one on there that is based on neuroscientific principles of how we slow our brain waves down, and then we teach our body emotionally what it feels like to live in that vegan world. All right, so go on there, and it's only about 10-15 minutes. If we can practice that, we can change the physiology in our body to align with that wonderful day when we go, oh my gosh, we're here. Okay. And the third one, Tonia, is in expanding people's mindset. I haven't got a copy in front of me, or else I'd hold it up. Not many people know, because it's meant to be on tour now, is that there is a sequel to Vistopia, really, called Myths of Choice: Why People Don't Change and What We Can Do About It. And I encourage people to go and get hold of the free 4-part course, which is veganpsychologist.com/myths, MYTHS, and just get a flavor for how we make huge assumptions about the world and other people. And then we get a little inkling of where the non-vegan community are coming from when they say, don't tell me what to do, or if it was so obvious, everyone would be vegan, all these things. So there's some resources, Tonia: self-care and self-awareness, exquisite communication, but also just getting behind the scenes, going a little bit deeper with why people are resisting what is actually probably the answer to all our problems, the moral baseline, physically, environmentally, spiritually, economically. Veganism has no bad news, does it, Tonia?
Absolutely not. And those are great resources too. So of course, wherever I share this too, I mean, we just have to get that into the hands of more people and let more people, even more people, know about you. I know that you have a ton of fans around the world, but your work is so important, because that is just, we can't go on and advocate if we can't take care of what's between these, between our ears.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking about what you were just saying about like the realization of where we are with what we've accomplished, like the self actualization, the first part that you were talking about. I remember, I'm gonna like name drop here, but like we all love him in the vegan world, is Earthling Ed actually told me, when you're advocating, one thing to do to make yourself feel a little bit better is to realize it's very, very unlikely that you're going to make somebody vegan in one conversation.
Yeah.
And to sort of be content with the fact that you're planting seeds. That's something that I had to learn, is that if you're planting a seed, like what you said about moving the vegan movement forward, just a baby step kind of a thing, and having to be content with that. So there's sometimes when I feel like it's just so huge and so big and so troubling. That's what I have to do, is exactly what you said. I have to just sort of realize that, like, as long as we're just keep pushing forward, we're not alone. There the vegan movement's growing all the time, and that just has to be enough. So I feel like since I've gone vegan, I feel like a big part of my life is not mine anymore. It belongs to the animals. It's not mine anymore. And so in order, like I said, in order to take care of what's between my ears, I have to just find spaces of contentment like that. And I think that's what I do, is just sort of, I have to sort of go, okay, that was enough for today, and then take care of me, and then do it again tomorrow. And then when I get burned out again, okay, now it's time to rest again. It's kind of like that tank is just kind of, we have to keep monitoring it, don't we?
Absolutely.
And just see where we're at, because it's unlike anything I always use the word profound. It's the most profound thing I've ever been through in my life, easily. It's just the deepest, the hardest. And I certainly came from that way of thinking, where I thought I was going to tell other people and share with other people what I learned, and they were going to be so appreciative to me for thank you so much for showing me this. I can't believe it. And that's not what we encounter. So
I know. And they should do, shouldn't they? And some people will get it right away. They should look at it and go, oh my God, I can't believe this. But they'd say all sorts of ridiculous things like, well, what about humane slaughter? Humane and slaughter are two. But this is why I wrote Myths of Choice, because it actually is, are most people psychopaths? No. Are they selfish? Some are, but not all of them. We have been lied to. We know this. And they have to wake up And I think at some level, the resistance is so great because they know at some level they're being lied to. But you suddenly have to become aware of, what do I do with this? It's what we call really an existential crisis. Existentialism is the philosophy of what it means to exist in the world. If we're going through this at the moment, it's huge uncertainty. In fact, one of the myths I talk about is the certainty myth. Our desire to want to know the answers, to want to know, this is what's happening. That's why we're getting the polarization. It never before reductionism. This is what's happening. Somebody comes up with a new doctor who says something, oh no, he's been discredited. And in a cruel baptism of words, he's been thrown aside, 50 years of work. And is that because the person's ignorant or silly? No, it's because at some level, it's overwhelming. It's like, where's the truth? I thought I could rely on these bodies to tell the truth. I thought that the government was there to look after us, or I thought doctors were there. And yet we're finding out it's, through social media. I went to my doctor and asked them X, Y, Z, and they want to speak out about something. And they're saying, no, I'm not paid to put my license on the line. And we're going, well, but if you know something, when you actually look at the work of T. Colin Campbell, who wrote the China study, when that came out definitively, is being able to cause and effect reverse heart disease through a whole food plant-based diet. That should be on the door of every GP surgery. Yeah. If that is a cause and effect result, why isn't it? Now, you and I know why that isn't. Because exactly. We know. Absolutely. Yeah. So once the vegan finds this out, they're saying to non-vegans, well, don't you think there's other things they might do? Because once there's big bucks involved, and there's, the pharmaceutical industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The meat and livestock industries are bailed out by governments, whether they sell or they don't. We're looking at, so when the new person comes along and they resist us, at some level, I think they're tapping into is, if I open this up, I will realize that everything I believe to be true isn't, which is what vegans have found out. Yeah. Let's join us. That's right. We're going to be great. We're going to be in the fetal position at night, worrying about the world. It's not an attractive option, is it? But I would rather, but once you know, you can't unknow.
Nope.
And the animals need us, and their plight is a billion times worse than ours. So, and I think I was listening to something by Earthling Ed the other day, actually, and I know Ed, and he's, and one thing he also reminded us that a very sad thing that's happened recently in our history is the death of Regan Russell. And that is hurt people. I think it's almost too much to take in for people. Someone that was an animal advocate for 40 years. And as he said, someone who is speaking out, whose life is taken in the pursuit of trying to make it easier for others and make this world a better place. That's what we want the media to focus on, not the fact she was breaking the law, because this new, literally the first case really of the law changing to make it a criminal offence, to illegal to be doing outside a slaughterhouse. And we owe it to her and to the animals, even more so, I think, is to keep going in terms of our advocacy. We don't all have to go and stand outside the slaughterhouse. We don't all have to go and do cubes of truth. But what we do have to do something. And sometimes it's the difference between going to work and someone passes you the ordinary milk, and instead saying, no, thank you, I'm vegan, saying, no, I actually don't eat animals. We put the animals right up front. When it's vegan, they go, oh yeah, I think we got soy. End of conversation. We want a chink of consciousness because we are eating animals, we're drinking animals. And then someone says, oh, that's a bit ridiculous. Well, actually, I found out this about, and it is actually eating them. And I found this out. And when I did a bit more homework, that can be all you have to say. You give a chink of, you break through the armor, and those myths, if we dispel those myths that, and you get into the other person that they're operating, well, if it was so bad, why is 99% of the population eating it? That's a myth, an unquestioned assumption that if it was bad for us, we wouldn't be doing it. You and I know that all the evidence is there. All the science is there. All the news is there, but they're still not changing. So we've got to get into the psychology of this, do our bit, and as I say, keep planting those seeds, and someone else will pick it up and water it.
Oh, I love that. Yes. I love the vernacular of saying I don't eat animals. I wonder if I learned that from you, actually. I went to a wedding shower probably about 1.5 years ago, and I brought my own food because that's what we do, and because there was nothing there. And so a lady came over to the table and she sat down next to me and she's like, oh, you're not having the whatever, And I literally just looked at her and said exactly that. I said, oh, I don't eat animals. So I'm not like, oh, I don't eat that. No, I'm on a special diet. No, I said,
That's right.
looked her in the
Yeah.
eye, and I very kindly said, I don't eat animals. And she
Yeah.
went, oh, and that reaction, I'll never forget it, because
Yeah.
that was different than exactly what you just
Yes.
said. It was a different
Yeah.
that I got. And then, of
Yeah.
course, I had to go through my own way of thinking after I said that to her, like, okay, how do I feel about that? Was that rude? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel like that was too much? Do I feel like
Yeah.
that was good? Whatever. And I said, you know what? That was the honest to God truth. That was 100%
Exactly.
true. And that wasn't being rude. And I really liked that way of saying it. So I think, that's part of our psychological journey that we have to go through as vegans,
Yeah.
is deciding that, I feel like we're driving and we're right in through here. We don't want to go too far to offend, because if we offend, then people just shut off. And if we don't go far enough, like you said, if we just say, I don't, however you worded it about the milk, if we don't go far enough, the message isn't clear, and it's too easy for them to shut it down. I mean, it's just mental gymnastics, but that's why we have resources such as yourself and Dr. Melanie Joy and Colleen Patrick Goodrow, and you guys always do focus on terminology and really getting the message across. So that's what we need, is to learn the right way that we can make a statement without having somebody go on and hide and hate us or beat us up and whatever. It's a lot for sure.
It is. Remember, you can't offend someone without their permission. Now, if you were to say, well, I don't eat animals and I can't believe how disgusting this is and how could you be so stupid to do that? That is aggressive. And that is being horrible. And it's unnecessary, because you've taken on the whole of the things that we know. But you just spoke your truth. Now, when you get a reaction from someone, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have said it. If you can, we're not afraid of other people's reactions. We're afraid of our feelings in relation to it. Oh, did I do something wrong? Now, what vegan has become vegan who doesn't say, I wish I knew years ago what I know now, I would have been vegan right away. All of us. So imagine someone comes to us and say, Tonia, why didn't you tell me it was animals? I went another 2 years before I realized what happened to baby calves. You see what I mean? And so just say your truth. And if someone says to you, I can't believe you're judging me, ask a question. Don't immediately go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not judging you. We don't have to defend ourselves. The truth doesn't need to be defended. We just need to put it out there. Truth is like a lion. It doesn't need to be defended. It will defend itself. Is if you do have a quick word with someone and you go, oh, for goodness sake, I can't believe how people do this, and you've been aggressive or you're angry, and they go, oh, I think you can apologize for the style in which you did it. And I'd say, for instance, you get really annoyed with someone, they go, oh my God, you're so angry. And say, you're right, I'm angry. And actually, I apologize. I was unnecessarily aggressive to you, and I apologize for that. However, what I don't apologize for is sharing the truth about what happens to animals. So you don't, whereas if we go, oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt you? We almost snatch back that, oh, it's not so bad to eat animals then, So
I'm
keep
sorry
thinking
if I
that.
offended you, but I'm not sorry for sharing the information.
No, I'm sorry that you feel offended.
Sorry.
Remember, you can't. You can't. If we were that powerful, we'd go out offending everybody all the time and saying, "Stop eating animals and get with the program." Is you can't do it. Actually, offense is received, not given. You can be aggressive and cause unnecessary harm, which causes that reaction. I'm sorry you feel offended. And I didn't deliberately try to make you feel uncomfortable. Is very different than I'm sorry I offended you.
Yes.
It's very simple, but it also doesn't let people get off the game of because if they do that, oh, well, thank you very much, Tanya. Suddenly they're talking about whether you're polite or you're not, and they've forgotten about the animals. We don't want them to lose that opportunity, because one day they'll thank us for this.
Yeah, and it actually does feel really good too. I spent my whole life trying to get people to like me, just typical, like, oh, I just want people to like me. And like now it does feel like veganism and being an activist has allowed me to grow up in that. I mean, of course I'm getting older too, so there's that, but like, I do feel like I'm able and capable now of spreading the message and saying what needs to be said. And again, like what you've been saying is you can't offend somebody. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but if I have an opportunity to say something, I'm going to say something, and I'm going because it's the truth and it's undeniable. These are facts and they need to be said, and so it makes me feel good. yeah, to share that message. So I'm always going to do that.
Yeah.
Whether I, and I, I've
Excellent.
lost friends, I've made people mad. I've messed up too. I certainly have messed up in my communication. Through this journey of mine. Absolutely. I've said the wrong thing. I have gone there. That's why I think it's mental gymnastics, but it's worth it, I think, because when we learn those communication skills, they're helpful communication skills for us to have, and I'm still learning, of course,
Yeah. And if you just go back with all the intention and actually say, hey, look, God, I was unnecessarily rude. I'm attacking you. And I appreciate that. Maybe you don't know everything that I know, but honestly, when I lifted the lid on this and I was so hurt and so distressed that they're suffering, I know that when people see this, the vast 99.9% of the population are going, this is wrong. It's just the fact that it's hidden from view. So you bring it back into giving a reason for that, because that's why most people go, oh, don't show me anything. Is because they're not psychopaths. Of course they're not. And we tend to go, well, if you don't see it, what about these poor animals? And say, I absolutely understand you feel that. What is it you think I'm going to show you? You see what I mean? You get them to visualize and they go, oh, there's going to be animals hurt. You're absolutely right. And really, until you see it, you can't imagine the extent of it. But just your reaction tells me that you don't want animals to be hurt. Okay. And the reality is, though, and if we are not vegan, if we do not, we are paying someone to abuse those animals. And you and I both know that's wrong and we don't want to do that. You suddenly partner with them by using words like we and, as opposed to we're all sort of born again vegan and going to heaven. And they're all going to hell because they're carnists. That's not the way forward to get people to, because they want to be liked too. We all want to be liked, don't we? When we get a rude or criticized thing on social media, it affects us. Of course it does, but that doesn't mean we don't need to speak our truth. We check our intention. Did I mean to, stick the knife in there and be horrible to someone? It's not a very nice term, is it? It's all these phrases we use in our world. But, did we mean to do that and make someone uncomfortable, unnecessary? Sometimes we do, not because we're horrible, it's because we just lose our guard. That's when we can apologize about how we did it, but we don't apologize about the necessity and the imperative of sharing the information.
Yeah, great. So have you dealt with people in the past who are maybe they were considering or toying with the idea of being more active and maybe just found that it was too psychologically traumatic, for them to do that, and they sort of stopped with their activism? Have you had that experience?
Absolutely. Sometimes I look back, I've only been a vegan for 10 years, although I was vegetarian for 30 years before, and the misguided belief that I was doing something ethical, sadly, it's a great experience though, because you think, well, hey, if I was doing this for ethics, how on earth didn't I, that's how much the truth is kept from us. If we don't know, it's because someone's working incredibly hard for us not to know. And that's still happening now in all sorts of areas. So absolutely. So I look back over those 10 years and I think, well, where have all these people gone? And sometimes they go into other areas and whatever, but I do think this burnout is very real in this game. And also people do come across things that are so distressing to them that they say, I can't take it anymore. I don't know anyone that goes into these situations, that stands outside the slaughterhouses, that goes undercover, that shares a video that is not affected by it. Okay. And in fact, we have Animals Australia here, and there's a particular woman on there who's done nearly 20 investigations into the Middle East and live exports and in all different countries. And people often say, oh, I'm not like her, I could never do that. And I said, she can't do it either, actually. However, she is so moved by this that she knows it's more painful not to do it. That's her journey. She knows she has the skills, but do you think she's got used to it? Do you think she is able to witness that without being a trembling wreck? I'm sure she isn't. And so, however, we don't all need to do undercover work. We don't all need to go to the slaughterhouse. We don't need to do cubes of truth, but we need to do something. And I find that the more I've got particularly involved at the moment in exploring vivisection, which is the most heinous of factory farming of animals to be tested on. It's just unbelievable. Does that not affect me? You bet it does. And so actually that's another bit of training that's actually free. We've done a 2-hour training actually with a group of us. It's all interactive. We have one of our MPs from the Animal Justice Party via my website on vivisection 101, nothing horrible to see. Just for, most people feel overwhelmed. They go, oh, how can I take on the medical establishment? They're going to blind me with science. We need to do this. If we don't test on animals, we test on people. So we've done a sort of 101 training that even the 18-year-old that knows nothing about the science behind testing could, if asked by the professor of medicine, do we have to test on animals or not? They could answer with a level of confidence. Okay, we've done it like that. Okay, please go and access that training. Again, it's on the vegan Psychologist. On one of the resources. So for instance, I've got involved in that. Is yes, it affects me. I've emceed Dominion many times. Yes, it affects me. Will I watch it again if it is helping other people? Yes, but I certainly won't be watching it else, because I don't feel we need to re-traumatize ourselves. So if that's too much, sometimes we need to take back time from there. If we find that other vegans have let us down, we don't have the right to be offended, to actually say, I can't do this anymore. Think of the animal in the cage. Think, how can I build the resources? How can I be around a group of people where it makes real change? But I do not think we have the right on our watch to actually walk away from this, because animals are suffering as we are speaking. And so I encourage people, we've got to be active. The minimum we can do, the minimal baseline, is being vegan. And that in and of itself is fabulous, but it's actually just brought us back to ground zero. We need more activists. But find your own form of activism, whether it's doing a potluck for your friends, taking vegan meals into work. That is advocacy. Find what's good for you and do it every day.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest too. That if something that is too difficult, too in the thick of it for some people, that's what you can do, is you can advocate, do whatever, James Aspey always says, do whatever you do, just do it vegan,
Yeah.
You're reminding me of Natasha and Luca, who I know because I've heard your podcast with them. I adore them. I get to spend time because they came to Detroit, and they actually really did a great thing in Michigan, and also all over the country, but we had a great time with them in Detroit 2 years ago now. And they came here and spent several days, about 5 days with us, and did a lot of encouraging people to get active. And we have been, we still have been, there's a lot of people now in Detroit, and we are encouraging other vegans to get active. Yeah, but they are one of the first people that came here and started the activism community in Detroit. So we had a great time spending time with them. I love those guys. Oh my gosh. Natasha and Luca are fantastic people. They're definitely a couple of the first people that I found vegan. So their work is wonderful.
Yeah, they're doing wonderful stuff. And I encourage people to get onto that podcast. I always say for $1 a month, you can have your own research team that goes out there and does extraordinary research for us and puts it in one place. It's just, and then listen to a great podcast. Incidentally, just for your speaker, you're in Detroit, actually in Detroit, yes?
I'm a little north of there. I'm about an hour north, But
do you know there is a... Wonderful. There is as we know, that was the center of General Motors, and there was a lot of it was destroyed enormously at one stage, as we know, and it was almost a ghost town. And there was a fabulous documentary called Urban Roots. Urban Roots, ROOTS. It is about the community of West African Americans that went to live in Detroit, and they had learned from their parents and grandparents how to grow food, and they were all sharing their food. They had no walls on the places they were living in, because no one wanted to be in Detroit, and they all started to share a community. Unfortunately, until the council got involved and started putting up walls and charging them for it, but that's another story. I encourage people to get hold of that documentary. It's a wonderful example of collaboration, and we can learn a lot of that as vegans.
Great. That's definitely your message tonight, isn't it? Is to, or this morning, I should say, depending on what part of the world you're watching from. Your message is definitely for vegans to be working together and let some of the little minutia, let some of that stuff go, so that we can focus on the task at hand, which is educating other people about what they don't know. Because I always like to think that too. I think that's something that actually helps me keep going, is realizing, and I have to remind myself of this often, this doesn't come easily to me, is realizing that the only difference between myself being a vegan and somebody being a non-vegan is just, or not yet vegan, a pre-vegan, is that they just haven't heard and seen what I have seen and heard before. They have not heard that yet. Because and if I didn't believe that, I would believe that the entire world is made up of psychopaths, and I'm not ready to go there.
Yeah, fantastic. No, I think you're absolutely right. That's it. And they don't know, because if they did, there was a time when we didn't know, but they know something's going on because they go, don't show me, if don't hurt me, don't whatever. The average person, when someone, kicks a dog in the street, they wince, they project themselves, we're not psychopaths. There are some around. Of course, there are other people that cause unnecessary pain. But it's really hard because people are so constrained by so many things. They feel in the sense of slavery, trying to put a roof over their head, trying to pay their bills. We come along and go, hey, that thing you're doing 3 times a day? Well, you can't do that anymore. And then this reaction is so great. It's out of proportion to what we're telling them is stop hurting animals. And I always say is that I've never eaten as well since I've been a vegan, and anything you like, from tacos to burgers to pizzas to curries, you can have it all, knowing that no one's, and I used to say, but you can do it vegan. They go, why would I bother? I say these days, any of the foods you enjoy, from tacos to burgers to pizzas to Mexican, you can do it knowing that no one had to suffer for your pleasure.
Yes.
And you bring the animals in again.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why we have to speak out, because I think that these people keep saying they don't want to hear it, but it does seep in, and there are seeds planted. So the more people speaking out, and the more restaurants serving vegan options, and the more times it hits the news or activism of any kind, the more times that those seeds get thrown into somebody's face, even when they're trying to push them away, the quicker, they will hopefully get to the 100 mark of actually finally accepting it, but it's exhausting, and we just have to keep going, don't we? And so your work is so great. I just want to once again push this, and then also your second book too, which actually I am ashamed to tell you, I'm going to order it right now. I haven't ordered it yet.
Sure.
Sometimes it's funny because even this is not an easy read. I mean, it's not a difficult read, as far as literal words and what you mean, but because it is such a profound message, it's something that takes, it's worth it, of course, but it takes my heart to read it, because it's such it's going there, and but it's so helpful. And so I love it, and I just love your work. And but I love that you have the resource to the website. So I hope that people hearing this will go to the website, and take advantage of those other resources, because that's what you've dedicated a huge part of your if not all of your work life to, is helping vegans be able to stay mentally healthy, so that we can keep working and try to do better, and try to make the world vegan faster. So
exactly.
And I can't, like I said, thank you so much. I can't believe I just have such a small channel, but I'm so thankful that I got, time with you. And I know that I have a lot of friends that are big fans of yours. So I hope
I'm a big fan of you from today on. So, and all your listeners, just keep going. Some of us are on the world stage. Some of us are just talking to a neighbor and taking something around, a little chink of consciousness at work. All of us are needed to bring about this world. So thank you for everyone. Thank you for being vegan, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah,
thank you, Tonia.
And someday when all this is over, I'm sure we will meet up at a veg fest somewhere, somehow.
Oh, I look forward to it. It'll be fantastic.
So thank you for your time, and I'm going to share this out. I hope everybody likes it. Please leave us a comment if you guys, if you guys want to go visit Claire's website. Please leave us a comment below, so that we can track this and get her some more people, and also that we can all benefit from your work. So
lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we will let you go enjoy your beautiful day. It's nighttime for me. And it's so funny how you said that it was freezing cold in Australia right now, because I always of course you guys are in winter, but I always think of Australia as beautiful and sunny all the time. But we've been experiencing record high, it's been 90 degrees. Well, you guys have different temperatures, but it's been ungodly humid and hot here for the past month or so.
Yeah. And it's another thing that affects our dystopia, because we know how we live is affecting our, environmental destruction. It's it's not hard. There's no bad news here, guys. Just become vegan, and then you can get on with your lives.
I know. Oh my goodness. Yes. So that's why I was just thinking that when I was saying how hot it's been. I'm like, why? It's what we're going through right now. Oh my goodness. One step at a time, one day at a time, huh? We'll just keep we'll just keep like drawing from us and sharing as much as we can. But like I said, every time we are depleted, we just have to find it in ourselves to reinflate ourselves and do the self-care that's needed so that we can keep going. Yeah. But I know a lot of fantastic activists, and every single person who speaks out for the animals and for our planet is a hero of mine. You know, it's just, I'm blown away by anybody that manages to do that. So, you know.
Wonderful.
Okay, well, I will let you go. Enjoy your beautiful day there. And eat chili, wear a sweater.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.